Now, what happened to the two boys? Thomas Hooker, who was one of the famous Puritan ministers, was driven from his pulpit in England. A warrant was issued for his arrest. He fled to Holland. 3 years later, he came back through England. His congregations followed him, including John and William Pratt. Probably came to America in 1633, 13 years after the Pilgrims, and they came to Massachusetts Bay Colony. They settled there, and John Pratt is shown in the land records there as having received land in Newton, or what would be called Newtown, which is where Cambridge is today. But after only 3 years, Thomas Hooker, feeling like the fighting and disagreements over religion in Boston were not helping his people, set out to found Connecticut. They went southwest through a trackless wilderness where nobody had ever been before, came over to the Connecticut River Valley, and there settled Hartford. So in downtown Hartford, we find a Founders Monument, and there on the Founders Monument are the names of John and William Pratt, these two boys in their 20s who followed Thomas Hooker to America for religious freedom, and that helped founded Hartford. A few years after Hartford was founded, one of the two brothers, our direct ancestor, William Pratt, with two others, went down the Connecticut River to its mouth and founded a town known as Saybrook. It was an 8-square-mile area which became farmland, and the small town of Saybrook is still there today. If you go to the cemetery in Saybrook, where our first American ancestor was, Lieutenant William Pratt, you find this wonderful cemetery on the Connecticut River, right at the mouth of the river. And there are many places without headstones today, but there are many very old headstones there. Some are made of easy to carve material, and therefore you can't read anything on them today. But these are some of the views of that wonderful cemetery. Hundreds and hundreds of Pratts are buried in the cemetery by name, as well as many of our other ancestors who married into the family. 8 generations of the family stayed here, from Lieutenant William Pratt down to Jared. Jared's father, Obadiah, was the first Pratt to leave this town and travel to New York, where Jared met Charity, whose family had traveled from Rhode Island during that same generation. The headstone on the right here is the headstone of William Pratt, Lieutenant William Pratt's son, who was named after him. Now, for a long time, we did not know where our original ancestor, William Pratt, was buried. A few years ago, as they were cleaning the cemetery, they found some original granite headstones and footstones that had been put in the granite wall. And one of those is shown here, and you can see on it that it has the name Pratt on it. And the town historian believes this is the original headstone and footstone for Lieutenant William Pratt, who would have settled this town in the early 1640s, almost 400 years ago today. In the small town of Saybrook, there is a museum that is called the Pratt House. It actually has been held in the Pratt family for hundreds of years. Across the street is what is called the Pratt Smithy. It's now a home, but it was the site of the first blacksmith shop, and it was said to be the longest running family business in America. For hundreds of years, Pratt's ran the blacksmith shop in this town. Now, when you go behind this Pratt museum or house, you find a very small portion of the house that's on the right, which appears to have been the original house that the family built in Saybrook and had been moved to this side. So the historians believe that little back portion of the house is in fact the first Pratt home in America. Inside the home are the old large fireplaces they used to cook in, the spinning wheels, and so on of that time period. And also up in the attic you can see the old timbers which hold this very, very old New England home together.